The unnamed couple's son died when he was just 26 years old. His body wasn't discovered for 2 days, but when it was recovered, a urologist was able to retrieve some sperm without having any formal consent from the deceased man. It was immediately frozen and stored for almost a year before being flown to a leading IVF clinic in California run by world-renowned doctor David Smotrich. According to Dr. Smotrich, the couple were very specific about the type of egg donor and surrogate used, insisting they were similar to someone their son might have married. They also specified they wanted a boy. Their grandson was born in 2015, which means he would now be 3 years old, and the family are believed to be living in the UK.
Just hear the details of this story. It does seem, on the face of it, pretty shocking. They didn't have the permission of their son to do this.
He'd never consented to this.
And the way that they got the sperm from his dead body and everything, it feels, I've got to be honest with you, a little bit creepy, the whole thing. And yet you can understand there is a grandparent's love underpinning all this and a desire for their son perhaps to live on in the form of this little baby boy. So I get their feeling. I'm just not sure that we should, as a society, be encouraging this kind of genetic engineering.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think at the end of the day, this woman was going through grief at losing her child, and she wanted to, make her son live on, and this was her way of doing it. And who are we to judge? You know, the technology's there. Why not use it?
Well, apart from anything else, Annabel Giles, they didn't have the permission or consent of their son who just died. They just took it off his body.
Stealing, isn't it? Without his consent. And also, what parent hears that their son has died and their first thought, because they had to act very quickly, they only had 24 hours, their first thought is, I know, we'll harvest his sperm and we'll get ourselves a grandson. It sounds like they're trying to buy their way out of the grieving process, and you can't do that. You can't pay your way out.
You're a psychotherapist.
Well, it's not about buying yourself.
Oh, sorry, Barrie.
You don't buy yourself out of anything. But you don't buy yourself out of anything. These people were grieving. And actually, who would have even thought about, if my son died, I don't even think I would have had the time to think, I'm going to take his sperm and have a grandchild.
But they did,
the grief process alone. I know, but why shouldn't they? Who are you to judge? You're a counsellor and a psychotherapist. The first thing you should be thinking about is helping those grieving parents get through the loss of their son, not moaning about their decision.
And what I would say to them first is to actually go with the grieving process, grieve properly, and then make decisions.
Oh, you know what? Then it's too late. They had a time period to get that sperm, get it on ice, and ship it to the US.
So you're saying it's okay?
Who are you to judge?
I'm not judging. I'm giving my opinion.
I'm saying it is okay.
It's okay.
I think your opinion's wrong.
Well, I think yours is. So there we are.
Well, that's fine.
So you're saying that it's okay to steal sperm from a dead body.
Oh, why are they stealing? It's their son. Aren't they the next of kin?
But it's
How would you feel if you were in that situation? Why is it selfish?
Barrie, they are the next of kin. That is true. But that does not give them the right to take the sperm, surely, without consent.
And you say, who are you to judge?
I think it does. I don't see that there's any reason with taking their dead son's sperm and creating a grandchild from it. And if they did that, and this story is in fact true, then I say good for them. And why shouldn't they? They've gone through this awful loss. They should have something at the end of it to remember their son.
What about the child, Barrie? What about the child
who grows up with
this?
They've got two grandparents that are going to look after it.
I will.
What effect will it have on the child?
The effect it will have on the child. Thanks, Barrie. The effect it will have on the child will grow up with this massive burden of having to be his dad, who he's never met. The donor of the egg was someone that the parents thought the son might have once gone out with.
It's an individual. The baby's going to grow up as an individual, and it's going to be loved by its grandparents.
With this burden of having to fill the space his dad left,
Where
which is not
the burden?
okay.
You're just assuming that child's going to grow up with some kind of an issue, and that's not right. You can't say that. Those grandparents brought their son up in a really respectful way. They're obviously in a position to look after that child. They can afford to go through a process.
Barrie, let me ask you a hypothetical. Had their son not died, had he lived and he'd become a father to a baby child, would his parents have had the right, if they wanted to take that child away from him?
Good point.
In certain circumstances, the answer to that would be yes. Of course, if there was a situation where that son couldn't have coped with looking after it. I'm a social worker. I'm registered in the UK
No, I'm putting to you, I'm just asking you.
And I would say yes.
Yeah, but no, my question, though, is not that there would be some problem. Just would they have had the right, ethically, morally, legally, to take their child away from him if he was still alive and had a child in a normal way? Not for any reason to
and my
connect it
answer
to bad
that,
parenting.
though, my answer to that is yes, if it was in a case of bad parenting. But other than that, no, of course not. And why would they need to? They would see their grandchild and their living son
Well, the only reason I'm
on a
asking you
daily
the question,
basis.
the only reason I'm asking the question is that obviously, in a way, that's what they've done. Only he's dead. In other words, they've done it not against his wishes, but without his wishes.
And you don't know
without
if
his
it was
consent.
against his wishes. You know, we're talking about a story where we don't really know the background of. We're all commenting on what we've read in the Daily Mail. And we know the Daily Mail can get a little bit, above themselves from time to time. So let's face it, we don't know how much of this story is true.
Well,
If it is true,
the Daily
then
Mail
good
certainly,
luck to them.
Well, so the Daily Mail story that I read certainly seemed to be extremely well sourced and accurate and hasn't been denied. So let's put that on the record. Look, it's a fascinating ethical debate.